Hello, everybody. If you're watching this video early, welcome to the podcast, and thank you for watching this video. So as you can see, Jonathan is here with me again, seventh appearance. So I'm going to dive straight into my introduction, which is the part that people normally hear each week. So here we go. Always got to psych myself up a little bit for that. You just got to get in the right moment. Okay, here we go. Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. With me today is a repeat offender, Jonathan Small from the United Kingdom. This is his seventh appearance on the podcast. Every time he's on here, it is always fantastic. And today we're talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, Jonathan, how are you doing today?
Hiya, Tyson. Yeah, good. Thanks for having me once again on your podcast. I've just come off the back of the foot and ankle show in the UK at the weekend, so there's lots of energy and enthusiasm to share with you.
Yeah, and there was a lot of good, bad, and ugly there, or was it just all good?
It's mainly good stuff at the foot and ankle show. It's full of like-minded people who are passionate about podiatry. I call it the passionate podiatry posse.
That's the one thing about that conference, because I was there 2 years ago, is when there's a very specific conference like that, you don't tend to get as many tools turn up to it as compared to when it's like an association event. Because when you have the association events, whether it's a state or national one, I'm not sure about the UK, but in Australia, there's a lot of people that turn up who they're there just to rub shoulders with the other one, and they get invited because they know this person knows that person. And there's a lot of nice podiatrists there, but sometimes it can be a bit of a tool fest in certain areas.
Also, yeah, absolutely. And I think some people just use that as their tick box for their CPD requirements for the registration. They just go, well, we'll just go to the annual professional body conference and that'll tick all the boxes. They're not there because they really want to be there. Whereas at the foot and ankle show, it's like-minded people going because they want to be there. They want to share in that atmosphere, and they want to learn some great speakers.
Yeah, and I think it's the same thing when there's certain events put on, whether it's about foot mobilization, dry needling, biomechanics, foot dermatology, all those sort of smaller type, conferences or events. When they're put on, people, like you said, people are there for a specific reason, and they're there to learn. So you end up having a group of like-minded people, which is just makes it more fun too.
Absolutely. Well, it comes down to your niching that you talked about 2 years ago, really, doesn't it? You're just focusing down to your target people that are going to be the most engaged.
Yeah, well, you're not going to put on a foot dermatology day or workshop and have people just rocking up to tick a box.
No.
If there's other ways to tick a box, then learn about foot dermatology. You're there because you want to learn about it. So today we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. So where are we starting from? Where's the premise of this come from?
Well, so basically, we talked about foot value on a previous podcast, which was very much around the concept of feet having a real value to them, and the solutions that we provide having real value. Well, I want to flip the psychology a little bit and look at why is it that it's undervalued? Why is it that the public really don't put as much emphasis on their foot health and valuing their feet as maybe they do for their teeth or their beauty?
Okay. So where do we start? Why do you think people undervalue? Because as you were saying that, I had a few ideas go off in my head, but I want to hear what you want to say first.
Yeah, so I think first of all, I think we have to look at how we're brought up and how the perception of feet is from a young age, really, because you get the message as a child: clean your teeth twice a day, and make sure you do a thorough job. Go to the dentist every 6 months, get your teeth checked. We don't have those messages to our children. It's not something that we say to them for their feet. We don't say, make sure you're checking your feet every day, and that you're getting to the podiatrist every 6 months. So habit isn't there from a young age. And the priority on how important looking after your feet isn't there. And all the messages you hear around health, it's about keeping active for your heart, having a good diet, a healthy lifestyle, good mental health. Nobody mentions keep your feet in good condition, because they're going to be the things that enable you to keep active and doing the things that you want to do.
Well, I suppose it's one of those things that you never hear a parent say to their child, "Did you wash your feet tonight?"
Mhm.
It's
Absolutely.
did you brush your teeth? But they'd never say to people, "Oh, when you have a shower, now make sure you wash your feet."
Yeah.
It's sort of forgotten about. And they do. Did you dry in between your toes? It's just forgotten about.
Absolutely. So from the moment you wake up, you then cover over your feet with your socks and put your shoes on, and you ignore them. They're just ignored all day long, unless you've got a problem, of course. But in a non-problem way, you don't actually do anything with them. Whereas with your say you're looking at your facial beauty, you'll see people touching up their makeup during the day to make themselves
Yeah.
look beautiful again. But feet just get ignored from the minute you wake to the minute you go to bed.
So do you think some people don't respect their feet because some podiatrists don't respect being podiatrists?
I
Oh,
think
no, that's a harsh. Oh, I
Are
just opened up a can of worms there. But
you
I'll give you
cutting
an
that one out?
example.
Or are you leaving that one in?
No, I'm going to leave that in. I'll give you an example. Only yesterday, we were at someone's house and their grandfather was there. Yeah, little short guy. And we're talking away. He says, "Oh, you used to have the podiatry clinic in town." I said, "That's right." And his wife said, "I was a patient." I went, "Oh, great." And he said, "Yeah, I'm now seeing this." He goes, "I'm now seeing this other podiatrist, not at my old clinic, somewhere else." And he said, "Yeah, the doctor referred me there. He gave me one of those government referrals, so I don't have to pay for it. It's just bulk billed." And I went in there, and I'm a diabetic. So I went and saw him, and he clipped my toenails and said, "See you later." And he went, "So is there anything else you need to check or tell me?" He went, "I know your toenails need cutting. See you later." He says, "Do I need to book back in?" And he went, "No." He went, "If when your toenails grow, just ring up and I'll cut them again for you." And he left and he said to me, these were his words, "I think he was a bit of a dickhead."
Mm.
And I went, "What?" And he says, "He just didn't care. He just didn't care that I was a diabetic, just didn't care." So yeah, and that just threw me. And I was sort of like, I was almost embarrassed that that person and myself, we have the same profession, yet we look at it completely different. And I'm thinking that can reflect on the public and how they view us. Therefore, maybe feet aren't important. Maybe you and I are looking at it the wrong way.
No, I think you're absolutely right there. That if you've lost your ability to care and be enthusiastic about your job, then that is going to reflect on to your patients, and the
Yeah,
patients are then going to maybe be more apathetic about their foot health. Or but part of that problem, of course, Tyson, is that at some point in the past he wouldn't have been like that, because he wouldn't have come into the profession and made it through qualification with an attitude like that, would he? He would have enjoyed it at some point. What's happened is during his professional career, somewhere along the line, he's lost the interest in
yeah,
delivering the highest care to patients. And I think that's the responsibility of the whole profession as well. Because if he's come out thinking he's going to be a foot specialist and he's ended up just cutting toenails, for instance,
yeah,
and then all he's ended up is either patients devaluing it by saying, "Oh, you're not worth me paying that much to look after my feet," or it's on the bulk buying scheme, a government subsidised scheme, then actually you're going to feel demotivated. You're going to feel actually there's a bit of a lower self-esteem, and it's just going to be a downward spiral. So I do think mental health is very much rolled up into this, for us to stay positive and passionate about podiatry and about feet, and reflect that to the patient, so they're then passionate about looking after their feet. Takes good mental health to be able to achieve that.
Oh, I agree. And something obviously happened in their career. Now, I've known this person for a number of years, and I met them pretty early on in their career, like the first year of their career. Not much has changed.
Okay.
I'll
Bang
just
goes
point
my
that out.
theory.
Smart enough, they're probably smart enough to get through. And I have no doubt that the person is intelligent, or you wouldn't have got through university in the first place. But it's something, obviously, it's got to do with belief systems, and I think it's beliefs and values around what you do. And I know people that did podiatry who don't drink the Kool-Aid of podiatry either. And you sort of go, "Well, I wonder why you did it boggles my mind why they did podiatry and stuck with it when they don't really have any belief in what we do.
Yeah, so yeah, in the past, maybe not so much these days, but certainly in the past, I would say that it wasn't seen as the number one choice for people to go into, unless it had exposure to podiatrists in their childhood. It's not something that when you sat at school, you're going to think, oh yeah, I really want to work with feet for the rest of my life. It's just not there, is it? It's not your career advisor's not going to advise you to go that route. Yeah, and we've both got stories around our entrance into podiatry, and it's not because it was our number one choice. What we've developed from it is a real passion for it, but it wasn't at the time. We didn't sit there and say that's what we always dreamed of being.
Yeah, I think that could be part. I reckon that's a huge part of it. And have noticed, when you hear all the guests that have been on the podcast, and you talk about all the different careers, about how people come into podiatry, but when I do get people on the show and they said, "Oh no, always wanted to be a podiatrist," just always passionate about wanting. I'd heard about podiatry, or I'd seen a podiatrist, and that was what I wanted to do. And geez, you can hear it in their voice too.
Yeah.
And whether they've been in 5, 10, or 20 years, you can see they just like Stacey Keating, who was on, and episode 175, I think it was, and she just, and you could hear it in her voice, she just loves being a podiatrist. And I must admit, when I started podiatry, I did not love being a podiatrist. Because you cop so much crap from GPs, and you're sort of pushed down that you are not worthy.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I overcame that. And then once I overcame that, all of a sudden I went, I bloody love doing what I do.
Absolutely. I'm exactly the same. I was a step out of the profession many years ago. It just it wasn't ticking the boxes for me. And I stuck with it. It's a good stable income to provide a family life, so you stick with that. But then as I've got older and I've been able to share my messages more around it, I've got more passionate about it, and I absolutely love the profession now. And that's helped because I'm surrounding myself with people who are equally passionate or even more passionate about it. And and it just rubs off for those who don't spend their time engaging with others like that. That's when you switch off to it and you get fed up and you're just going through the motions and you're just turning up, cutting the toenails, walking away, for instance, like the example that you said. Whereas if you engage with people who really want to help their patients, then you're going to feel so much better about it as well. And that then rubs off onto the patients because they can see that you're passionate about helping them, and they start to value their feet more.
Yeah, and I think the other part too, I'll point out, this is not just a podiatry problem with the sort of attitude towards the job and the profession. I've seen GPs who hate being GPs. I've seen physios who hate being a physio. I know chiropractors that do not like it. So I think that person, that patient said that, sort of called them a dickhead, but just said there was no passion in what they were doing. I think every profession would be exactly the same. There's people who are doing it who just are going through the motions. So going back to the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, public don't understand the importance of feet. What's the step? What's your thought?
Well, before we go into that, there's the other psychology of it, of where we are placed when we're treating their feet. Yeah. The natural position is they are looking down on us. Yeah, because the natural position, they're on a couch slightly elevated to get their feet up to so we can get access to them, and so they're looking down, and the psychology of that deep down, the subconscious side of it, then has that knock on the self-esteem, and there's countless number of patients, and you'll have had them the same, where they think that they can disrespect you because they think you're below them, because physically you're sat below them. And I had an example just last week, and I told the story in my Flames of Hope talk at the Foot and Ankle show. It was I'd seen a 19-year-old girl with ingrown toenails, and offered her the solution of surgery, which she wanted to have done. She went away and cancelled the nail surgery appointment based on the cost, passed the bill to her dad, and her dad turned around and said to my receptionist, "Your fees are the same as in the legal profession, and you're not worth it, basically, because I'm a solicitor and I know." And I'm thinking, what gave him the right to think that legal professional solicitors are worth more than podiatrists? Where does that come from?
Oh,
And
I totally
he then
agree.
went on to say it was only a basic check on an ingrown toenail. And it's like, well, if it's that basic, why did she have to come in? Why could you not deal with it yourself?
Yeah, well, I don't know too many solicitors that give injections and can perform nail surgery.
Exactly. And it's that perception of feet. He wouldn't do that to a surgeon. He wouldn't phone
Yeah.
them up and say it's basic and actually I'm worth more than you. So what gives them the right to do that to? He'd never met me, didn't know me. In fact, it was recommendation from his mother-in-law or something that she came to see me. So he'd heard good things about me, but from a value point of view, he deemed the legal profession more value than the podiatry profession.
Ah, he was on the old totem pole. I remember when we did podiatry at uni and we had an orthopedic surgeon came in and he said, oh, just want to let everybody know, I think this is really, really important for you to understand where you sit on the social totem pole. And I'm there, this will be interesting. And of course, this may surprise some people, but I was a bit of a smart ass at uni. And so anyway, he's going through and he says, yeah, you've got unemployed here, and he's breaking through and he says, yeah, and then you've got the teaching profession. And also we were in nursing, but at least we were above nursing and the teaching profession. But then he said, then there was, physio, they had podiatry, then physiotherapy, then dentistry, chiropractors or whatever, then doctors. And then he went, then there's surgeons. He says, and you got brain surgeons. He says, and then right at the top of the totem pole, you need to understand this, you have orthopedic surgeons.
And he wasn't tongue in cheek.
I pissed myself laughing. I cracked up laughing and said, that is one of the funniest things I've ever heard. That is hilarious. And I started clapping like this was a joke. And he just looked at me like,
really?
You mean nothing to me. So thank God he was just a guest and wasn't marking my exam that year. But then I saw a friend of mine who was a doctor, and I told him this story. And he just went, that's how some of them think. They really believe there's this where your qualifications determine who you are in life. As far as I'm concerned, we are all equal. I don't care whether you're an orthopedic surgeon, if you're a teacher, a nurse, or a podiatrist, we are all equal. We do different things, and some of us get paid more for doing it and some don't, but we're no better than the other person. And what they say, what's the difference between God and an orthopedic surgeon? Is God doesn't think he's an orthopedic surgeon.
but this is absolutely on that equality scale, but that isn't then how the public then pay for those services from all those people. They'll happily pay for their pets to be fixed by a vet. They'll just get whatever the bill is, they'll get their credit card out. They wouldn't go up against a vet and say you're not worth it. But they'll do that to podiatrists, and that's where it isn't equal, is it? It should be, but it's just not in the overall scheme of things. But the only people that can fight against that and change that is podiatrists getting out there and shouting about how good a job they can do and getting it out there and showing the difference it can make to people's lives, keeping them active, keeping them healthy, keeping them able to enjoy things. I did a little comparison of I worked it out on a price per mile basis on the average cost of motoring and the average cost of keeping your feet in good condition. And not surprisingly, the cost of getting from A to B in your car, you spend an awful lot more money on than you do on looking after your feet to get you from A to B. Yet your feet allow you to be able to do so much more than just get from A to B. They allow you to dance, jump, cycle, run, play with your children, your grandchildren.
Skip. You forgot skip.
Skip. All of these activities. Your car can't do those things. Your car can only get you from A to B and play you some music at the same time, or talk on the phone if you've got hands free. That's about it, isn't it?
So what you're saying is, as a profession, we should be getting together and we need to be screaming from the rooftop that we are friggin' awesome and we are worthy. But what the problem I find in the profession, this is an interesting conversation, actually. The problem I find is I can get up there, you can get up there, Tony Gavin can get up there. All the different podiatrists we know could get up there and start shouting from the rooftops that we are awesome. and this is why we should need to be respected more. But then you've got a number of people in the profession who don't believe they're worthy. And it's the only, mate, like I said, maybe I know there's other people that are bitter and twisted in other professions, but you will never walk into a dental surgery and have the dentist greet you at the front desk and then have the dentist take you back in there. And then the dentist hold the suction while drilling and doing everything. And then the dentist walking out and taking the money and then stopping halfway through a filling, go, hang on, I just need to answer that phone, going out and answering the phone. And so I think a lot of it starts right at the beginning. And when people are setting up their businesses, they try to do everything on the cheap. Only profession I've seen that do it, other than the massage therapist that works down a dark alley, that they just
I completely agree. It's such an easy route into private practice, and really what we need to begin our newly qualified to do is to go and work in good quality practices. See how that works. Professional looking, that is shouting about the value of good podiatry and showing the value of feet to their patients, and then that will rub off on them, and then they can go, okay, so this is how I'd like my clinic to look, or even better. As opposed to them going, actually, I'll come out and I haven't got much money, but I need to get some money, and so I'll just set it up on the cheap, and I'll build up. And I know that story because I've lived it myself, Tyson. I absolutely get it why people would do it.
I did exactly the same thing. And I know.
And it's really easy for us to stand there and say it's wrong, and then it's so hard for people listening who are newly qualified, who thinking they're going to go into private practice. But I would urge them that there is a massive shortage, particularly in the UK at the moment, of good quality podiatrists. If you're a good quality podiatrist, please go and work in a good quality practice. Put yourself out there. You will be mopped up by some excellent practices out there, and then you can see what a high quality business is and what it achieves for patients. Then go and build your own business along those values. And you'll have earned some money in order that you've got something behind you in order that you can do that. You may even get lucky and find the practices he's willing to sell on to you in the future. And rather than starting from scratch, because whilst we keep starting from scratch, we'll keep having cheap podiatrists.
Yeah, well, when I said that it's wrong, even though that's exactly what I did, I worked for myself right from the get-go, but I did have a receptionist. And that was one of the things I did. But I still believe that I shouldn't have been allowed to just go and set up my own practice, even though I did. And I've been saying it for 30-something years now, that the registration boards should. And if someone from the registration board's listening to this, geez, I hope you actually are listening, that put some rules in place that we graduate. And if you're going to set up a clinic, there's a set of standards that must be met before a clinic can get opened.
We do have a set of standards in the UK. We do have a set of standards, but it doesn't say that you have to work with other people. And I think that's part of the problem, is you can go and do it on your own, and it doesn't say you've got to work towards the top of your license. So you end up doing the easier job, because when you're trained from university, is that you've got a lot of knowledge, but you've not got a lot of confidence in delivering that knowledge. So you choose the easier work. So often you end up going into the cut and come again chiropody, foot care type work, because that's safe and easier, rather than pushing your limits and going down the route of orthotic therapy or other biomechanic stuff, or steroid injection or whatever, where you're working more towards the top of your license. And I think that's where we struggle. I think we need to come out of university and think, actually, this is the start of the journey. That's the baseline, and we're going to get better and work up from there. And unless we do that in our private practices, then we shouldn't be in private practice.
So what you're saying is, some people, like I look at, there's two groups that will work for themselves, say too early maybe, and they'll set up somewhere, they're doing everything themselves, might be very small, try to keep the price down. There's one group that understand they need to get better, and they go along to a lot of different events, and they spend their money educating themselves, upskilling, and you can see those people slowly building their practice, and then all of a sudden they've got a receptionist, they're employing someone, they get bigger rooms, and their business really flourishes. And then you've got the other person who sits in a little room, refuses to go to anything. Their skill set very rarely changes. Oh, yep, they tick a few boxes and get re-registered, do the CPR, but nothing changes. There's no mental growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
10 years later, they're complaining to the registration board that the other person must be breaking the rules to be doing so well. And they don't realize they reinvested in themselves. They didn't just, and it's that other person who sits there and does nothing that I think reflects poorly on the profession.
Yeah, absolutely, and holds back the rest of the profession, and doesn't allow the public then to think actually podiatry is worth that of the first example you gave. They think that it's worth what the second example is.
Yeah. So what you're saying then, Jonathan, is we're supposed to find these people, take them out in the street and give them public floggings. Is that that's what I'm reading in between what you're saying there? How do we fix this problem?
We talked about it this week, and you know that people come along to like my talks at the shows, and they listen to your podcasts. But the people that we really need to reach are the ones who don't come along to those conferences and don't listen to your podcasts. How do we reach those people? Yeah, because that's the bit that's holding us back. Yeah, if we could just get those people on board so everybody was on the same hymn sheet, then we would fly as a profession globally, and the value of feet would go through the roof. People would start to appreciate and understand it. All we can do is keep taking small steps, and eventually is that rising tide raises all ships. Yeah, so we've just got to keep going. The more people who are out there putting the message out about the value of feet, the value of the solutions that we provide to patients, means that the patients will then value their feet more. And I talked about the psychology there, and of people looking down on us. When the patient walks into your clinic, don't get them on the couch straight away. Sit opposite them, so you're sat as equals as you're talking about their problems. Then invite them onto the couch, rather than them being in that subservient position, for instance. And all the ability on social media these days to communicate how important feet are, and to really shout about from the rooftops about good foot health. And we can all do that. And I shared again in my Flames of Hope talk just the numbers of YouTube hits that we get on our videos. You had the same on your simple strapping,
81,000 views on a 1 minute and 14 second heel strapping video.
Phenomenal. I got 14,000 hits on how to apply a foot cream, either Flexitol or an aqueous cream. How to 1 minute each video, how to apply cream. It's crazy. And unfortunately, I didn't put it in the talk, but it was a stat that came in just beforehand. I had 4,500 minutes of viewing for my YouTube channel in September. That's 75 hours of viewing. That's 3 24-hour days of rolling foot promotion. How much would that cost me on telly to do that? And I'm one podiatrist. If we took the tens of thousands in the UK, 10,000 in the UK, hundreds of thousands around the globe, we're all doing it. What's the public going to hear? They're going to hear the message that feet are valuable and they're important and they're worth looking after.
So if somebody knows a podiatrist or is friends with a podiatrist who is, say, just walling away in their career, they're not growing in any way, and they know them, should they be reaching out to them and saying, like the whole "Are you okay?" type thing, and not in the way that has been done, but just trying to encourage them. Hey, maybe you should come along to something, especially if you're friends with them, because and I know there's going to be some people that they're beyond help. So there's one particular podiatrist I know, not going to mention his name, not that he listens to this podcast anyway. Worst podiatrist I've ever known. How he's working, I have no idea how this guy keeps working. Anyway, so I've given away it to Guy. So that narrows it down to 50% of our profession. Anyway, when my book came out, he sent me an email telling me, "Oh, your book's the worst thing that's ever been written." Fair enough. When the podcast came out, I got the same message. What a joke. Nobody's even going to listen to that. However, I was in the top 100 of career podcasts in the UK as of yesterday, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. And I very quickly went out of the 100 too, but it was good to be in there for a day. But so there's some people beyond help, But I think there's a lot
that
of
comes
people
from
there that want
jealousy.
help. Yeah, but I
Yeah,
think
that comes from jealousy, Tyson. Yeah. He's envious of you and has no idea how to get up to that level, or that he even needs to. It's easier for him just to pull you down than to push himself up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but
so
there would be a group, though. There would be a group of people who have fallen into that rut of just going backwards and forwards, same thing every day, who probably just need a friend who's, someone that they went through uni with who's doing okay, to reach out to them and say, do you need a hand with your practice? Do you need some advice? Do you need some guidance?
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't even have to be framed that way, because people are very protectionist. They'll think that they're doing all right, because if they start to knock themselves, then they lower their self-esteem, and that doesn't make them feel any better. So they'll always think that they're doing okay. But just reaching out in a friendly manner rather than thinking that it's competitive. And one of the nicest stories I've heard, obviously from Work Smart and Hard, and from your business stuff, we get groups together of people where we're actually giving them support and help. But when those people then go on to deliver help to others, that's always really fulfilling. So Louise Reaney, you know Louise, she's number 2 in your podcast. She pardon?
At the moment, I'm creeping up.
Oh yeah, you're close, aren't you?
I am. I'm creeping up.
And she just once she'd done my Work Smart and Hard and started to grow herself, she then reached out to the other podiatrists in her area and said, how about we just get together? And then they formed a group that actually supports each other. And of course, she's able to share the messages around transformation and growth with those podiatrists, so they all gain from that. And those who don't want to be engaged with it will be in the minority. Then the whole point is getting the majority. Remember, you say about writing systems for the majority of people. This is a system. The majority of podiatrists getting behind each other and shouting about how important feet are and why we should be looking after them will raise the value of feet and the value of the profession. So,
and what's interesting is that I'm sure there's podiatrists in America who are listening to this conversation going, what are you guys smoking at the moment? Because America is completely different when it comes to podiatry. I've got a lot of friends over there, and I personally don't know any podiatrists in America that have some of the clinics that I've seen over here in Australia. They just don't exist. Yeah, some of them are still small practices, and might be still a solo practitioner, but not like what we get away with in this country, and probably similar to what you get away with in the UK, and maybe New Zealand's the same as well. And I think it's just because we can leave high school, go straight to university, and 3 to 4 years later, you've got your podiatry qualification, off you go. Whereas America, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've always said that we should have at least 2 years residency afterwards, where you go around rotations into different clinics to make it minimum 5 years, and that should also include some time in private practice. Or maybe there needs to be a 1 or 2 year pre-private practice registration process, where you only spend time working in somebody else's practice before you're allowed to set up on your own. I don't know what the answers are. What I do know is that in order to change, in order to transform, we've got to make some changes to the whole process, because otherwise we're just going to keep repeating the cycle, which holds the value of feet at a lower level than they're really worth. Yeah, maybe we need to get someone from the registration board on here and demand answers from them. The thing is, you and I both know that actually getting a top-down approach can be really successful if the passion is there and they want to deliver that. But equally, the grassroots level is where you and I work best at, and creating transformation on an individual basis that actually filters through the whole profession and lifts up from that grassroots. And in the UK now, we one of the big things around for us is about tiering of the profession, and it's now coming together more and more because we've had a top-down approach and a grassroots lifting approach working
working together. And so maybe it's just across the board in both aspects that's needed, just to raise that value of feet for the public, so they see it differently. You know, you see adverts on the telly saying, make sure you clean your teeth, you know, every twice a day, look after them. This is your toothpaste you should be using, you know, in their advertising. And we need to do that as profession. There was some talk this week actually at the Foot and Ankle Show around how we maybe get the commercial world involved in that. So the footwear manufacturers, you know, you've got the Nike
True.
and Adidas and people like that. They've got millions and billions of pounds that they're spending to promote their product. Yeah. Well, why can't they at the same time be encouraged to promote the value of the foot in the whole, you know, underneath their product or inside their product, so that actually the whole public are actually going, it's not just the value of the trainer. And that's the daft thing, isn't it? People have spent £200 on their Nike Airs. Yeah?
Oh yeah.
But will they spend £200 looking after their feet that goes inside the Nike Air?
No, it's true. And I like what you said. It's more of a grassroots. It's like what you're doing, what I do with business coaching, what I do when I run reboot groups, what I do with this podcast, is we're trying to affect people at a grassroots level. And hopefully that makes a difference. Yeah, like I hope this podcast, you know, gets to 1,000 episodes one day and I'm still around talking. People think my walking stick clicking against the desk. But the changes that, like, I get at least 1 or 2 emails every single week of someone saying, oh, I listened to this episode and they thought it was great. Or it's changed my thinking on that. And also all these people that are saying those things, please write a review on Apple Podcasts or whatever your podcast platform is. I only have 55 reviews. So I want to get to 100. Anyway, it's a different story. So we're changing things from the grassroots. I really don't think the change is going to come from the registration board, the associations, or the universities, because a lot of the times they're the same people or they're intertwined with each other, bit of inbreeding. And I sometimes don't believe that I believe they love the profession, but I don't always believe they love change as much as what needs to be changed sometimes.
Unless it's forced on them. And this was one of the great things about what Osgo's done with the Foot and Ankle Show, is that actually it's taken podiatry in the UK to a higher level. And so our professional bodies had to respond in order to keep up with them. And that's been great for the whole profession in the UK. Yeah.
Well, I do know the association over here, they have started to introduce some business talks at some of their conferences, but usually they're the coaching, they're the like larger organizations that probably also sponsor the association, which sort of makes sense. But hey, I've offered my services to every state association the last 5 or 10 years. And you know how many invites I've got?
Yeah.
None.
Absolutely. I get it completely.
You know how many invites I'm going to get after this episode? None.
Doesn't stop you from doing what you're doing though, Tyson.
No, but I've had invites. I've had about 4 invites of different associations in the UK. And I'm thinking, awesome. And I told you that when I was there, the Osgo thing, the podiatrists in the UK, I've never seen a group of podiatrists, especially at the Foot and Ankle Show, who loved each other so much. Mm-hmm. And they really actually worked together and were trying to make a change to the profession. It was so good to see. And then you had, the names have eluded me. I will tell you exactly who it is because I've got them written down because they were supposed to come on the podcast. And so hopefully they're listening to this episode and they will get off their bums. You know, I've got it here.
Whilst you're looking, of course, you had Amy McLean talking about the pod family. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's just about getting together with people with like-minded passion, basically, bringing them together and creating friendship groups from that.
There we go. I found them. Okay. Cool. Graham Franklin and Robin Crawley. Now,
yeah, I saw
you two are listening to this. They were at the Foot and Ankle Show just recently. These guys are in the same suburb. They pretty much are competition. Yet I've never seen 2 people. When I met them, I thought they were lovers. They got on that well. I went, okay, they're just a gay couple. I'd never thought about it. And because they kept talking about our business. and them working together. And I just went, oh, okay, no, I didn't think they'll go. I just thought they were just really good friends.
Yeah.
But to know that they are actually competition to each other, but at the same time, I've never seen two people so friendly with each other. And that's why I wanted to get them on the podcast to talk about that relationship they actually have, which I think was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I know them very well, and it's great to see them doing so well in the profession. They just don't shout about it as much as maybe you or I would. But I remember when a new podiatrist moved into my town. Bear in mind, I'm a small market town, and I didn't think there was the capacity. I'd far rather they just approached me and said, "Can I work at yours?" Because why build another clinic? It was already there with all the equipment, exactly what we said. And I wrote to them and I just said, I said, look, it's a small profession. It's a lonely world. Please don't feel that we're in competition with each other. Please don't put yourself into that position. Let's both work together in order to shout about how good podiatry is. And the door's always open. You're more than welcome to engage with me. I'm happy to go for coffee. We'll have a chat. All of that. Do you think they accepted that invite?
No.
Do you think they've ever reached out?
No, well, I've done
anything along those lines. No, they just set up in competition and try and poach patients.
I remember, I'm pretty sure it was in like either our association rules, I could be wrong, that, professionally, especially when you moved into a town, if there was already a practitioner there, to introduce yourself and let them know that you were going to be open up. So every time I opened up a clinic in a different town, I did that. I always contacted the other one. Some of them I went out and saw them and said, hey, just let you know, I'm going to be setting up down, Sydney Street or whatever it is. And I'd tell them what I was going to do. I didn't bother me. But when I had the clinic here in Cairns, the amount of podiatrists that just opened up, another one opened up, except Kyle Richardson, who opened up the last podiatry clinic here. And Kyle did sort of reach out to me, and Kyle and I did see each other, and I'm actually friendly with Kyle. And who do you think has the best podiatry clinic in Cairns now that I've sold mine? Kyle.
Yeah.
So isn't that funny? He did the right thing, and he's doing the right thing, and now he has an awesome clinic.
Yeah, and the thing is, for me, it's not just about you're just wanting to be friends with them. It's the whole knock-on effect is actually it raises the profile of podiatry and feet in general. Because the more people, if you think you're in competition with someone, you're going to do more with your marketing. Therefore, you're going to talk about feet more in order to get a share of the population out there to come into your clinic. So everybody benefits by having that healthy competition. Doesn't mean it's unfriendly competition. It can be very friendly competition, and you can even run campaigns together that actually encourage that process of marketing about feet and podiatry. And of course, you and I are very much agree on the A to D patients. And actually, an A patient for me may not be an A patient for them. It may be a very different sort of person. So that would be absolutely fine, wouldn't it? Because we want to be attracting our A patients to our own clinics.
Yeah, and I remember having a conversation with Kyle a few years back before I sold the clinic, and I said to him, and I think it was Paul Butterworth was doing a talk. He's a podiatric surgeon, so he was doing a talk in Cairns. And Kyle and I were both there, and we'd had a few wines. Well, I had a few wines. Kyle probably didn't, but I know I did. And then I said to Kyle, I said, we should really be like UFC fighters, like MMA cage fighters. I said, from 8:30 to 5:30, you're in your business, I'm in my business, and we are actually competitors against each other, and we do what we're trained to do. Just like fighters, when they're in the cage, they do what they're trained to do. It's not personal. It's just business. You do it. I said, but as soon as you're out of that cage from 5:30 through to 8:30 the next morning, and you see each other socially, why can't you be friendly? Why can't you have a beer? Cage fighter, like professional fighters do it all the time. They do the job in the ring and out of the ring. Some of them are really good friends. And
Yeah, the only thing I would say differently is that in cage fighting you are trying to hurt the other person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's a little
Yeah,
bit.
and
Yeah.
you're not that's not the thing, is it? You're not trying to
No.
cause damage to your competitor. You're just trying to get the win over that situation. Yeah, rather than
Yeah.
actually doing the physical harm.
Oh no,
I think what
even in cage fighting, you're not necessarily you're trying to get the win. It's just
Yeah,
sometimes the
absolutely.
other
Yeah,
person
yeah.
gets hurt in the process.
It's
But
just a bit.
yeah,
Yeah, that's right.
it's,
Yeah, but but
okay, it's
but
slightly different.
what we don't want is we don't want that side effect of,
No.
oh, but they may get hurt. That's not the intention. Although this ties in very nicely with that, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
We've got the good of the profession. Those are out there who are shouting, who are promoting the value of feet to the public, and the public embracing that. Yeah, they're the good people. You've got the bad people who aren't doing that. They're just sitting there, keeping their mouth quiet, and not doing the promotion side, just ticking things over. They're not necessarily doing harm to you personally, but they're doing harm to the growth of the profession. Then you've got the ugly people.
Oh, the
And the
ugly.
ugly
Yes.
people is like that one who actually left you the review saying that it was the worst thing that you'd done, and people who attack me for what I'm trying to do, and they are vicious and they're trying to hurt you, personally hurt you.
Oh
And I
yeah.
stood on stage and I highlighted a case where somebody had done that on repeated occasions, deliberately trying to hurt. Yeah, using horrible language in order to inflict an emotional response. They are the ugly of the profession, absolute ugly of the profession. And that sums it up for me. We have the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we need to all move towards being the good of the profession.
Yeah. Well, that's why when I was saying about Kyle and we're like cage fighters. But when you're in your clinic, like you said, I was never trying to harm him in any way. What I was trying to do is make my clinic better and get my message out to the public. And that's what, if every podiatrist just focused on themselves and their business and didn't care what the other person was doing, like, yes, you will see them market somewhere, or you'll see them do something, you go, oh, I wish I had a thought of that. Or they might be sponsoring something, you go, oh, I never thought about that either. But learn from what they're doing and go, okay, how can I take what they've done? How can I adapt that and make it my own? Not
absolutely
watch what they've done and go, oh, geez, I think they said something in there that almost indicates that they're trying to say they're an expert. I'm going to go to the registration board and put a complaint in. To me, when you start pulling that shit, that's when you're getting bitter and twisted and you're ugly, and you're not concentrating on your own business. How you've seen me, I don't know if I've shown to you my marketing folder. Well, I used to have I created these marketing folders. Every year I had a marketing folder where every little bit of advertising, marketing, anything I did, any idea, change of letterheads, designs, all went in this marketing folder. How I came up with that idea was because of a bit of twisted podiatrist in my area who had followed everything I'd done over 2 years, put it all together in this folder, sent it to the registration board. Then the registration board sent it to me saying, sent me a copy of everything I'd done over 2 years and said, there's a few things here you need to answer. I said, oh yeah, look, I'll answer those. They said, my God, this is spectacular.
They did you a favor.
I said, it saved me two years of work putting all this together. And that's how I came up with the idea because of an ugly podiatrist.
Yeah, but this is it. They think that they're causing you harm, but we're the sort of personalities that will turn that into something positive. Yeah, so there's a good outcome for us. Yeah. We're not going to be pulled down by them. We're actually going to take it and go, okay, we'll reflect on it and we'll go, right, then we can use that to our advantage. And they don't get that. They just can't see. They're not in the mindset of that. And it's what's really interesting for me is that this thing about them focusing on their time and effort on the competition, whether that's competition of other podiatrists or competition of anybody else who's treating feet, takes them away from the role of shouting about the value of feet to the public. And so we win because we're not caught up in competition. We're not focusing on them. We're focusing on our own business or our own profession. And we get the message out there. I had a patient the other week who'd come with cracked heels. She traveled 25 miles to me. Now that's not far in your sort of distance in Australia, but for us, she'll have driven past 30 podiatrists to get to me, in order to come and see me. And she went, I'm glad I found you because I didn't know where to go with my cracked heels. Yeah.
Yeah.
She only knew where to go for cracked heels because I'm out there shouting about for feet and the value of feet and solutions for cracked heels, etc. Yeah. If we all were doing that, then she wouldn't have had to travel past 30 other podiatrists because she'd just gone to the one local to her that shouted about cracked heels.
Well, it is when you're talking about the ugly, when people are spending too much time watching everybody else,
yeah,
they're not focusing on their own business. So therefore, that person
no.
with the cracked heels doesn't even know they're there because they're not doing anything other than watching everybody else, doing their work and then watching what the competitors are doing the work, watching the competitors, and not just the coaching industry is not that much different. To like every business, every industry is like that. You've got groups of people who are watching what other people are doing and are so focused on that they never get anything done themselves. And you get other people that just get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the people who are ugly, we can't help them.
No. They'll always be on the fringe. They'll try and get into the main group of the good and the bad who are trying to become good, but they'll just sit out on that fringe and they'll be isolated. They'll find their own little tribe in there.
Oh, they do too.
And we saw them at the conference, the Foot and Ankle Show. We saw them this week, and they'll skulk off at the end, with a little tribe, and they'll try and create more negativity around that starts to impinge on all those other positive. But actually, the strength of the positive ones, it just outweighs them, and that's the way we'll push the profession forwards, by us all being more positive, and maybe eventually those will also come along and do exactly the same, and actually we'll all be singing off the same hymn sheet, and feet will be valued, and we will get people passing on from one generation to another. Look after your feet, make sure you wash your feet every day, go and see your podiatrist regularly or your foot care person, get your feet checked, and look after them. You only get one set of feet.
Yeah, I do think the ugly are getting less. I think there's less ugliness as the profession's moving on. I think there's a lot more. Oh, it sounds terrible. I think there's a lot more bad than good. Mm-hmm. Like I think there's some great podiatry clinics out there, and there's a lot more great podiatry clinics now than there used to be. I think there's a lot of, I wouldn't call them bad. There's a lot of really average podiatry clinics that I think want to get better, but they're not quite sure how. So I think listening to this podcast, doing the 12-week reboot, that always helps. Little plug. But I think they do.
If you're plugging, I'll plug.
Yeah. Work smart, not harder over in the UK. The 12-week podiatry business reboot. Next one starts in February 2022. We've got podiatry marketing workshop coming up at the end of November, all on my website. Go to tysonfranklin.com. Anyway, so I do think there's a lot of good. I think there's a lot of average because the clinics are easy to set up, but I think they want to be better. But I actually think the ugly side of podiatry is really slowly disappearing because most of the ugly podiatrists I know are more mature podiatrists, been around for a while.
Yeah, I think so. I think the problem is if they get themselves into a position where they can have influence, then they can start a new generation off. I think that's I think that's what you have to be mindful of. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. And the great thing about the Pod Legend podcast is those average podiatrists get access to so much free stuff out there to support them. So much good stuff. They don't have to pay a penny. You're on 170 odd episodes or something.
Yeah. Well, this one will be episode. I'll tell you right now. This is going to be. Let's have a look here. I can edit out all this umming and ahhing here. This will be episode 179.
179 episodes.
Yeah. Unless we keep talking too long, and then it'll be 179 and 180. I'll split it into two.
So that's on an hour an episode. that's a phenomenal amount of content. And even if they ditch the ones with me on because they don't like me, there's still some amazing number of hours of learning for them to help them move from average to being the good of the profession. And of course, then you've got the ones above good that just blow my mind, the ones that you just you're gobsmacked by, and you just think, oh, you're just so brilliant, And I met some of them this week at the show, and you just think what you're doing is, they're 4 years graduated, and they're already transforming the profession.
Oh, I know.
It took me 30 years to get into this place, and they're doing it after 4, and it's like, wow, you're just awesome.
Yeah, 10 years, and I sort of was still wondering what I was doing. I was sort of like, I was still a bit confused. I see all these younger podiatrists coming through, and they're more focused, they're passionate, they know what they want to do. And a lot of them are going into their own businesses. And I look at the guests I've had on, the amount I've learned after, almost 180 episodes. I just shake my head going, where was this information? I wish this information had been there 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But the other thing I've noticed that it sparked off, when I started this podcast, I think there were maybe 3 podiatry podcasts around the world. Now there's over 20.
Yeah.
So I know that this podcast and the other ones that came before me, but I'd been doing podcasting a few years before that. If you want to go and check out It's No Secret with Dr. T. But to see all these other podiatry podcasts popping up lets you know that, obviously people have got something to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but this is knock-on effect, isn't it? When you start to do something, then and other people see some success with it, then they'll start to copy it. It's the same with podiatry coaching in the UK. There was only the Hive and myself and your book. Okay, that was it in the UK several years ago. And now look how many there out there coaches in podiatry to help professions to the profession to do well. And of course, using Zoom to make all this an international availability for them of people like yourself to help the profession. And so any good idea will grow and will bring people along with it. And so it's happening in podiatry, as you say. There's less ugly, there's more good, and we're going in the right direction. But the more people that come on board, the better it's going to be. The quicker we'll get to where we want to get to.
Yep. And I think everyone who's listening to this, if you're one of the good podiatrists out there, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. I'm actually going to be doing something. I'm going to announce it in the next couple of weeks about doing the reviews. And if you leave a review, I'm going to do a random draw every week. And that random draw person is going to win something. I mean, regardless, because I found a site I can go to so I can see all the reviews. So it doesn't matter whether you have the review 2 years ago or you leave it now, everyone will still go into the draw to win this certain thing I'm going to do each week. So, but I haven't worked out exactly what I know what I want to do. I just got to figure out how I explain it to people. So anyway, Jonathan, let's wrap this up. Have you got a final tip, which you normally always have, and I always ask, so I'm expecting you to be prepared to finish this particular episode off?
Yeah, I think very much. We talk about growth of the podiatrists and them developing themselves and shouting about podiatry. I think that the key thing for me that we haven't covered in great detail, but it needs to be said, is don't take the knocks from one individual about your value and your worth and the value of their feet. Okay, if just one person saying it to you as a negative, because people will leave negative reviews quicker than they leave positive reviews for you. So don't take that personally, because for every one that knocks you, there'll be hundreds that value you. They just don't tell it to your face. They'll tell it to other people. They'll pass on the message, the word of mouth. But they won't actually go and leave that review for you. So, but the negative person will only focus on you and they'll leave the negative review. So having a patient who devalues their feet, like that solicitor that I said, or the value of the solutions you provide, don't take that personally. It's just shrug it off, grow a set of balls, and let them just fester in their situation, and you actually carry on doing the good work, because there will be hundreds of people out there, thousands of people who appreciate the good work that you do.
Yeah, and that's what I read somewhere once. It said, "A critic, tell me a critic that has a statue built for them."
Yeah,
and no one built a statue for a critic, so you're always going to get that person who's you. And the thing I've also heard, as soon as someone starts criticizing you, it means you're doing something right. Because if you weren't doing anything right, you wouldn't be on their radar and they wouldn't criticize you. So if you've had a troll say something on Facebook, you've got a negative review about something that you're doing, if you're pushing in a certain area of podiatry that is, might be a little bit left field, but it's something you're passionate in, and someone's saying, oh, that's a stupid idea, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And just keep going, because obviously you're pushing buttons on them, and it's probably something that go, I wish I had done that. And there could be a little bit of jealousy there.
Yeah. So my thing from Foot and Ankle Show was, to create change in the world, you're going to have people that love you and you hate you. You don't get people in power in the world, around the world, who have everybody loving them. It doesn't happen like that. So if you want to change podiatry and change the value of feet, then you're going to attract people who love you, but equally you're going to get the people who don't, and just ignore the people that don't.
That is a perfect way to finish, Jonathan. So once again, I want to thank you for your seventh appearance. Your seventh. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to edit that out, and I'm going to do it again. So,
you had that beer, that was the problem.
I know, I did. Okay, so Jonathan, I want to thank you for your seventh appearance on the Podiatry Legends podcast. See, I got it right that time. And thanks for coming on, sharing your knowledge, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so thank you very much. And I know we talk to each other every week anyway, so I look forward to talking again soon.
It's always my pleasure. I'm happy to do it. It's great to speak with you, Tyson. Thank you.